Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I heard that a lot of you guys wanted my Purrely deck list. Well, I can guarantee you that's purely good. I can guarantee you that's purely good. Anyways, now the deck list, as you guys might have seen on the Big Grinder channel, it's very weird because it's playing a very strange package. The very strange package that you will see in this decklist is the Dark World package, but let's go over the decklist and why I do prefer this decklist going second. The decklist going first has some very big issues. Now let me go over those big issues. The big issue is not even like when you go first, the deck doesn't even feel bad. It's like you don't end on a lot. You can end still almost every time on a noir, but your noir might be with 4 material instead of 5. A noir with 4 material instead of 5 is a very big issue. So how do we play out an end on Purrely when we go first? First of all, when you go first, you wanna hard open a pretty memory or an happy memory. Happy memory is probably the worst one. You probably wanna open with the pretty memory or a way to get this card in your hand. Another card was also very good to open when you go first is My Friend Purrely. Now, if we have to classify those cards as going first opening, the first one would see My Friend Purrely. Why is My Friend Purrely more important? Because My Friend Purrely will grab Pretty Memory, and Pretty Memory will special summon the Lily, and the Lily will grab you the trap. Okay, so open this card when you go first is very important. Why? Because only with this interaction, only by My Friend, we will be able to special summon a Pretty. And as you can see, your Noir will be 3 materials. So you will have a Noir with the 3 materials plus a negation. That means a negation for monsters and 1 spell. Now, we want also always to get in this situation, and that's why the first monster that you want to special summon is the Purrely. You want to special summon the Purrely, the white cat, because you want to get an early access to My Friend Purrely. You don't really want to add it with the Lily. Now, if you play a list going first, you probably should play double Pure Leap and also double Fill Spell. The Fill Spell is very important against some runic matchups. And also because we'll play around enemy controller and Book of Moon if you have already a Noir established on the board, but most of the time you will just end on a Beauty and Pure Leap, and the Beauty is gonna have 2, 3, 4 materials. Now, the first thing that we do, and I always do, if I open with, if we open Pretty Memory or Happy Memory, the first thing that you do is using those. Okay, you use the Pretty Memory is the first thing that you do when you use it, and you try to access the Beauty as soon as possible. You want to access the Beauty as soon as possible because after this interaction, every other spell that you will activate, any other Purely spell, you will use the Beauty to attach, and your Noir will have more materials. Now, when you go first, the main issue about this deck is the fact that it loses to Book of Moon and Triple Tactical Talent. And you kinda end up on nothing if you get Book of Moon or Triple Tactical Talent, or you actually get both. Now that's why, in my opinion, this deck is unplayable going first, because any good board breaker will basically shit on you. It's gonna be bad, my brother. It's like stealing candies to a child. And you end on nothing, my brother. You're gonna cry in a corner at the end of the road, and you're gonna be like, why the fuck did I play Purely? Well, but if we go second, we have other options. Now, as I already said multiple times, a Purely Happiness is the best card of your deck. Because a Purely Happiness equals double Noir. Let me show you guys real quick how Purely Happiness ends all double Noir. Now, the first thing that we wanna do now in an end like this, you bait all the interruptions. So basically, you are gonna have 6 cards going second, and you wanna use at least 4 of them to out your opponent's main interaction in order to establish an happiness on the board. Okay? Happiness attack monsters in defense, and you add Happy Memory. Then you attack again, and you add another Happy Memory. So we go Happiness, We exit into happiness, we enter in battle phase. Now, there are two possible scenarios. The scenarios in which our opponent has a monster in attack position, or the scenario in which our opponent has a monster in defense position. Now, let's assume we will talk about both scenarios, step by step. So first of all, we attack the monster in defense, we use happiness, then we use happy memory. If you can special summon, you would do that in this scenario, so would be Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2. You attach again the material, and then you discard to special summon probably a Purrely. It doesn't matter if you excavate or not in this situation. Then you do it again. If you can discard, you will discard. If you cannot discard, it's fine anyways. Let's assume we will not discard in this scenario. So you're gonna attack the monsters in defense 2 more times, and you're gonna have 2 cards to add in this scenario. The cards that you are gonna add in this scenario are gonna be Delicious Memory and Pretty Memory. Okay? Or if you have an extra spell, so if you don't have only My Friend Purrely, what you're gonna add in this scenario would be, if you have already access to Pretty Memory and stuff, what you're gonna add in this scenario would be the Trap. So this works with 1 extra spell. Then in main phase 2, we're gonna use the effect of DEPT in order to special summon Plump. The Plump is gonna touch the Delicious. We're gonna use Pretty. We're gonna chain Plump or Happiness depending on the situation. Might be in this case, might be Happiness. I usually, if I have an extra spell, I would probably do this. Then you can discard to special summon another Purrely. If you don't hit by these, it's not like the end of the world. Because no matter what, we're gonna finish with, most likely, double Noir. Because you're gonna also use the Happiness to attach. You attach 1 more material to you of your opponent, and you end on Noir on this, and the next turn you have another Noir. Okay, so this is off, I guess, 1 happiness, and if you hit with the 3 excavate with the Purrely. You need to hit at least once with the Purrely. So 1 happiness is double Noir, and this is probably the most broken part about this deck, and that's why, in my opinion, the deck has to be played going second. I don't think there is any other choice. I don't think you can go first. I saw some lists trying to cope and going first. This deck is not unplayable when you go first, but it's very weak. It's not like super weak, it's like you still end on a negation and possibly 2 speeds. But in my opinion, it's not good enough for the current meta format. So, why do we play? After the first 20 cards that in my opinion are mandatory and no one should argue about this ratio, why do we play the Dark World stuff? Now, the Dark World, I already mentioned it multiple times, is infinity discard fodder. It will give you also link options. Like the link options that we are talking about are Muckraker, IP, Azalea, and Griffon. You probably don't even need the IP. You can probably play another Xyz one. The IP can be actually, you can just do Azalea and then you can special summon Griffon in your own turn. I do felt like IP was needed in some scenarios, but it's not mandatory, in my opinion. You can also play the second Azalea, which might probably come up more. How does the combo work? I already explained it multiple times, but let's go over the situation. 2 quick spells, it's 2 quick spells, 1 rainbow. That's what I usually would say. Like, even a normal summon, it's fine. A quick spell is just better. If you have a normal summon, it's also fine. If you open with the continuous My Friend Purrely, it's also fine. Now, let's go over the entire line and the entire combo, considering also hitting or not hitting cards. So during the draw phase, you would use Pretty Memory, 1000. You pitch this. And with this, you want to special summon the Black Cat. Why do we want to special summon the Black Cat here? Because we don't know. We are going first in this scenario, and we don't know if we are gonna have, if we're gonna hit good with our Purrely. We don't know how many spells we are gonna excavate with the normal Purrely. So in this case, I wanted to special summon as soon as possible my Beauty, so the sleep is gonna be attached to my Beauty. Would be Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2 in order to chain block. And in this case, we add the Lucent. And we also add the continuous spell. now main phase 1. We're gonna activate it, and then we're gonna use the effect of Lily in order to exceed a summon into Beauty. I usually special summon it in the middle, because of my combo, you need to special summon the Xyz in the middle and closest to the graveyard, or in the middle and closest to the extra deck, and you will understand why later on. After that, I will use my friend Purrely, and I will see what I will excavate. You can also do it before Xyz. I just feel more comfortable doing, like, it's fine both ways, but I know what I'm gonna excavate with this. It's gonna be the quick spells if I open with the Rainbow. I will not try to excavate the Pure Lip in this scenario specifically. So would it be double Sleepy and one Delicious. With this sort of ends, you will not end with any spell in the graveyard, so that's why I'm doing this. Let's assume we don't get Delicious, because otherwise you guys will complain in the comment section of the YouTube channel. So I'm gonna get a Sleepy. I'm gonna use the Sleepy, Chilling 1, Beauty Chilling 2, and we're gonna attach the spell to the Xyz. We're gonna discard the Lucent, and we're gonna special summon Purrely. Chilling 1 Lucent, Chilling 2 Purrely. Lucent is mandatory, Rainbow is not mandatory, and that's why we built the chain like that. Excavate 3. We miss, that's actually good. So I can show you guys if I miss what happens. And we're gonna special summon the Lucent. After that, we're gonna special summon the Rainbow by spinning back the Lucent in the end. Now there are two combos that you can actually take. You can special summon on top the Muckraker, or you can special summon on top the IP. I'm gonna show you why you don't need the Masquerena. It's a card that I probably will cut in the future in order to put another Xyz one, like for example a Slacker Magician. So you're gonna turn those two into a Muckraker, and then you're gonna use Sleepy again, Chaining 1, Chaining 2, and you're gonna attach with the Beauty. You're gonna discard the Lucent, and now on double hit, if you don't hit, you still end on a good board, I would say. So it's Chilling 1 Lucent, Chilling 2 Purrely, and we kinda need to excavate if you wanna end on a Noir, but it's not really important. 1, 2, and 3. So we get it with my friend Purrely, and we will special summon back the Lucent, and then we special summon back the Rainbow, we add back the Lucent, and after that, I would go into IP, but you can also go without IP. You can also go into Azalea, and after that you can use Muckraker effect, discard the Lucent to special summon Rainbow, and Muckraker discards for effect, so you can still special summon the Lucent back, and after that you can use all of those to go into a Griffon. If you have any spells in the graveyard, you would set. If you don't, you just don't use the effect. So this is the very basic board if you don't hit literally anything with the Purrely. In the case we would hit anything with the Purrely, like for example, like an Epi, we would attach also the Epi in that scenario, and you would end on a Noir. And this is, I literally showed the worst possible scenario. This is my end board in the worst possible scenario. And it's opening with the quick spell without any normal summon, because opening the normal summon is actually better. Because opening with the normal summon will give you more chance to start with my friend Purrely, and if you start with my friend Purrely, you would have a trap set no matter what. So that's why I do really think that the Rainbow package is needed. Going second, it's even better because you will have access to Grapha. Now, Grapha, in my opinion, it's a very important card that has to be played, because plays around Board Breakers, plays around Omni Negation, I mean not Board Breakers, plays around Floodgates like Skill Drain. This deck has an hard time against Skill Drain and Gozen Match. Against Gozen Match you can kinda play by going into purely into Happiness, but that's not always happening. Against interruptions, you can bait them with Grapha when the Lucent doesn't really do that. So in those scenarios, you would search the Grapha with rainbow. And if you open also multiple rainbows, or if you open rainbow plus lucent, you will search the graph in that situation. And I do think that it's a very valuable interruption, and also because the graph can spin back in your end of the rainbow. So in the scenarios in which you have the rainbow and you want to search the graph, you can also use the graph as an interruption in your opponent turn, because you can keep the graph in your hand and you can discard it with any Purrely. So you can have a pop as well, in addition of, for example, the banish of plump. And in my opinion, it makes a huge and massive difference, and that's why the card made the cut in the main deck. Now let's go over the flex spot. As you can see, basically all of those are 20 flex spot. How did I manage those flex spot? It's 5 dark words and then 15 cards that are basically designed to hit on Kashtira. So we got Prosperity, Talent, Dark Ruler, Tactics, Storm, and Feather Duster. Prosperity is designed in order to add me cards like Triple Tactical Talent, Dark Ruler, or Trust against Kashtira. Any of those cards is gonna be fine, because that means that my opponent will have nothing on the board. And if I can establish an happiness, as I already showed you guys, you can guarantee double noir, and no deck can out double noir if they are not playing in the main deck Lava Golem. Then basically people would say, okay, Nash, but you playing the Dark World stuff, but then you lose to Kashtira. I literally explained that you need at least one of those 15 cards, and then your engine can do the rest. If you open just Feather Duster or Lightning Storm, you're gonna do it for back row, and that means that there is only what? Ferry plus Rise on the board, and this deck can easily play through interruptions. And also those cards, the Rainbow and the Lucent, will give you an extra layer of interruption, like going into Azalea. So in my opinion, those cards are very, very valuable. You can end, like, again, the IP is not really needed when you go first, but going IP into Azalea or going IP into Griffon, in my opinion, is such a good interaction, and that's why I like it. But basically this is the main deck, and then if they send you first, you can just do the end bot that I showed you when you go first. You need to hit at least one time on 3 hits on Purrely. It's 2 hit basically, but would be 3 hit if you start with a normal summon and you hit on the normal summon. And you are gonna end on a noir anyways. So usually I don't like to end on the trap, because as I told you guys, it's very simple to bait out the traps, because they can use Forbidden Lance on your Xyz and you won't a special summon the noir. They can use Book of Moon in Chain and you won't special summon the noir. They can use Flashing Fire in Chain and you won't special summon the noir, even though you still get the pluses of my friend Purrely, but it's not that important in my opinion. If they establish a board anyways, then you have to crack it back, it's gonna be super hard. And again, there are so many ways to play around it, and also if you don't have a 5 materials noir, they can just do tactics still. And if they are playing Kashtira and they play tactics, you will have to spin at a point with your noir, and they can just do tactics take, and they can just go for a Zeus line. So in my opinion, this deck list specifically has to go second. I don't think there is any other choice, and if they send you first, you will just have to rely on excavating the rainbow stuff and try to end on a noir with Griffon or a noir with IP in order to go into Azalea or Griffon. Let's go over the extra deck. The extra deck will play double happiness, because you play double happiness because when you play against Kashtira and your Kashtira opponent is very knowledgeable of the game, it's gonna end on a Ferrier, Unicorn, Bird. It's not gonna make a Rise, and if it doesn't make a Rise and you have only happiness, one happiness in the extra deck, as soon as you will activate any monster effect, it's gonna look at your extra deck, it's gonna see one happiness, and it's gonna hit it. Then double beauty, because this card is basically the Xyz that you're gonna summon the most through the game. One plump, because we only play one delicious, and having more plump doesn't make any sense. Double noir, double Zeus. Downerd, in my opinion, is not really needed. You guys might think, yo Nash, are you crazy? This card makes 4 materials Zeus. Yeah, the entire deck makes 4 materials Zeus. Downerd is not needed. You can play without it. I usually banish it with Prosperity, so it's like, I actually never use this card. I might have missed it in very rare scenarios, but to be honest with you guys, this card makes the cut in the extra deck. Is it needed 100%? No, it's not needed 100%. If you have any other better card to play instead of it, I would probably try it. Princess Sprite, I tried every other Xyz one in the game. My main concern is when they were sending me first, I needed an Xyz that would hit at least one of those 15 spells in some scenarios, or in some circumstances, and I needed just an Xyz one that gives me a plus. And the only Xyz one that gives you a plus, and it's also allowed you to play around Gozer match, is Princess Sprite, because you can also go into a Zeus after that. So that's the reason why I play Princess Sprite, to play around Gozer match, and to try to hit one of my 15 flex spots. And it's also a plus, and can extend you further the combo in some scenarios. Then the Griffon, mandatory, because like you kinda need a sort of Floodgate monsters in order to play against Kashtira. Azalea, this card is broken. Like, this card is actually a mandatory, there is nothing to say. IP is not mandatory. If you play the Dark World version, I would say Muckraker is a very good addition. Let's go over the side deck. Over the side deck, I tried different stuff. I tried Ash, Bell, but they felt too weak in my opinion. So I went more over very unfair cards, basically. If my opponent was building an unfair board, and like, I don't really want to let that happen. So if my opponent builds a too much of an unfair board, like for example, Runic Furair, when it goes first, it creates 3 layers of interruption. That's actually impossible to deal with just board breakers. Now, Runic Furair, when you play against that deck, let me check if I have it somewhere, Furair. When you play against Runic Furair, there are 3 issues actually. The first of all is the board itself. The board itself consists in Folgo plus Dompa plus the Sprite, Carrot, Red. Okay, so those are basically or one of them plus starter set. Usually, like if they had started, they can just stand on both on the board, and that would be fine. So you have to deal with Red, Carrot, Dompa, and Folgo. Okay. Which is basically just Red and Carrot. Those are already very good interactions. So if I have a Dark Ruler, I have to fire it as soon as possible. If I start playing, it just tributes and pops. And then you can just draw with the Folgo. I don't want that to happen. The second issue is the graveyard. The second issue is the graveyard because there is Rex in the graveyard and Raphael in the graveyard. So at any point, you can just Rex for Raphael. And that's an issue because we're talking about another interruption. And the third issue are the Runic cards in hand. So basically, board breakers don't really work against this deck, so I needed something very unfair. And by unfair, I decided to play Droll and Shifter in my side deck. Shifter is not very synergic with this deck list. The issue is when you Shifter, you usually don't end on a Noir. You don't end on a Noir because you don't have spells. You cannot put spells in your graveyard, and also your Lily is basically dead. Which means that half of your combos are dead. So you will have to rely on making an Xyz like an Happiness, and then add the trap, and then try to set up an Noir in your opponent tour, or going for a very big and huge Zeus. It's still super problematic. Shifter is not an amazing card. Can be Shifter, can be Bell just for the Furair version, because Bell is way more impactful than Shifter against the Furair version. Because they can always go Mannequin Cat, special summon the Shifter, and special summon Chaos, the Chaos Hunter. I mean, do they side the Chaos Hunter against me? I don't know, I will have to test more Shifter. I don't think Shifter is mandatory. I do think that Droll is mandatory. The Tricosmic Cyclone, for a period, I actually wanted to main deck this card, because against the Labyrinth, they have the Evelyn Sky Prison. So your Lightning Storm and Feather Duster are not amazing. And against any Runic variant, if they are smart, they can just still use the cost of Carrot to tribute the monster in the extra monster zone, and then chain a Runic spell on the Lightning Storm. So those cards are not very amazing. Those cards are just amazing against Kashtira. Against a neutral deck, I do not consider those cards great. And that's why you might just take in consideration to put the Grapha and the Lightning Storm in the side and main deck Cosmic Cyclone, which is, in my opinion, not even bad, actually. I do think that, like, would it be actually solid to do something around those lines, like, for example, those two in the side and Grapha? Like, I do think this is also valuable as an approach. I don't hate it. It's something that requires more testing. Triple impermanence, because it's just another entrap. It's a trap also that you can attach from the plump. So I kinda like it. I do think that impermanence, shifter and roll are probably the best entraps with the most high impact that we have in the game right now. Then double field spell when you go first and pure lip. The field spell is something that I stealed from Annie and Isam. The street is, in my opinion, good when you go first, and it's also super valuable against any runic variant, because protects your monster bar being targeted. And also the second trap, because what you're gonna do is, you kinda need the second trap, because what you're gonna do if you don't get access to Delicious, you're gonna reveal double trap and one Delicious with my friend Purrely, and no matter what, your hit is gonna be amazing. That's why you play the second trap when you go first. And you would play it in the main deck if you go first. One of my viewers suggested me to play Evilly. Now let's talk about Evilly. As I told you, the best card in your deck is a Purrely Happiness. This card basically says go +2, and if you have the rainbow in your hand, you go +4. Even +5 if you hit with the Purrely. Now, do you know what's amazing about this card? Is the fact that you need your battle phase. So, by needing your battle phase, that means that you will have to enter in the battle phase and you will have to attack with your monsters, and in order to go plus. If you go evenly in order to out your board, it's like going first. So that's it. This was my Purrely decklist. Thank you for watching. See you next time.